So this shows up as a YouTube live, just so
All
you know.
right.
Hi.
Cool. Hello. Good to see you.
Well, welcome everyone. We are running a little tiny bit late, but we are excited to be here. I'm here with my own friend and naturopath, Dr. Lauren Beardsley. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you, Bridget, for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you. It's great.
Yeah, likewise. Well, I was reading your bio earlier, which was interesting because I never knew your official story. But I was hoping you could share kind of your more unofficial story. How did you get into being a naturopath, and like what are the specialties you've picked up along the way?
Yeah. So I've been interested in medicine for as long as I can remember. My mother grew up in nursing, and so always wanted to go into some type of medical field, and ended up kind of stumbling upon naturopathic medicine, and it's like the calling pulls you in kind of a thing. So in going through school, felt like I was drinking from a fire hose, absorbing all the information. And post grad, honestly, is where a lot of the learning, like, and just integration began. So I myself was self-diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroid disease and a lot of adrenal dysfunction. And in realizing that, just started to dive into, what it truly means to get to the root of things, right? To start to self-heal. So that's a consistent journey, right? Every day we wake up and make the choice to heal or not. So my background is primarily in endocrinology. Most of the clientele I work with, that's a concern of theirs. And then around that, gut health and toxicity, etc. But Hashimoto's thyroid disease is a huge part of my life, and just really navigating how to build my immune system and create, resilience over time. So I'm a big advocate in just, embracing whatever your struggles are, and just diving headfirst in and figuring it out. So it's been ups and downs and a lot of fun for the last, 15, 18 years. So
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Is that how long you've
Yeah.
been at this?
Yes. Well, when did I diagnose? I found out about thyroid stuff. I think it was like 15 or 16 years ago. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So when I met you, I kind of met your husband first. I was just
yeah.
thinking, I wanted to pull up the picture just to laugh. I think I interviewed him like 9 years ago.
We were talking about that earlier, like adrenal health or
On
function,
adrenals,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think around then you were both working for Dr. Alan Christensen, who's well known
Yes.
also for endocrinology. So you also sounds like you got a fire hose of clients about
Yeah.
thyroid. And
Yes.
so I thought we could start with that. So I actually didn't know you have Hashimoto's. I have Hashimoto's also, as you do
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's been, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, which is why I think I want to unpack it. I feel like I really wasn't finding the right care and the right solutions, wasn't always running the right labs for years, really.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. So I know this is like a huge question, but maybe we'll just start with like,
Yeah.
what is the right way to get a correct thyroid diagnosis?
So, and there are, standard labs that are run, and then there's a lot more. I mean, I consider pretty just like standard of care on my end, but understanding really, thyroid brain communication. So that TSH marker is, the common place to run and check. And then the parameters of normal, right? Those reference ranges for lab values are pretty vast. I think they're continuing to adjust, but I think, getting the appropriate labs run, and then having a conversation with someone that's going to really dive into correlating like what your experience in life is, like your symptomatic picture, and then what those numbers mean, right? Because it's like numbers do speak volume, and like putting it together with someone's experience is one thing. So TSH, and then understanding like what the optimal zones are, right? I don't know if like numbers are helpful, Bridget, to talk
Yeah,
about now. Let's just
if
keep,
you
okay.
have them
Okay.
all off the top of your head, just
Yeah.
spit them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And TSH, I mean, typical reference ranges are 0.45 to 4.5. Like that's normal. So, you could be on that higher end of normal and be considered fine. But really in, the optimizing thyroid realm, in particular with dealing with autoimmune thyroid, we want to get that number closer to a 1, if not like a 0.5 to a 1.5. Some would argue in my previous training with Dr. Alan Christensen, who is fantastic on so many ways. His idea was to get it sub 1, because when you can, keep that TSH more suppressed into that still normal zone, but lower, you're going to help prevent the potentiation of that autoimmune progression, and you're going to be feeling better. So TSH 0.5 to 1.5, and then understanding a free T3, free T4 value, getting the free levels. And I like to get those away from medication. So often I'll have my clients not take medications the morning of, just to, if they are on any type of like, replacement or supplementation, just to understand where do you stand with regards to free hormone levels without any exogenous interference or, contribution rather. So free T3, free T4.
Where do you
And
like free T3? I'm just typing it out for people.
yeah, so there are some numbers, some parameters. So 3.2 to 4.4 kind of a thing. And really what I love to look at is a lot of times T3s are suboptimal. And my conversation with that is there's so much that impacts our conversion, right? Our activation of that T4 to T3, right?
Yeah.
It's not all about, oh, wow, your teeth, and this is my opinion. I know there's varying opinions here, but it's not all about, oh, you need more medication because your T3 is low. That enzyme that converts T4 to T3, there's a lot that can impact that, cortisol levels, gut biome, status, dietary habit, like a lot can contribute to the efficiency or the inefficiency of that enzyme conversion. So I test that. And even if people are, that TSH looks great, if they're T3, T4, which ideally, Bridget, I like the T4 to T3 to be about a 1 to 3 ratio. Regardless of numbers in and of themselves, just like that ratio piece. If that's lacking, then that's a big conversation of, well, what's going on there? Why are you not converting? Are you not sleeping? Are you stressed out? Is your gut a mess? Are you, have a toxic burden? Those types of things.
Okay, so the T3 is the lower of the ratio or the higher of the ratio?
The higher.
The higher.
Did I
Okay,
say
so
that backwards?
T4, I'm not sure, but yeah. So
Yeah.
T4 should, yeah, I kind of remember T4 should be maybe like 1.5-ish, or what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably like a 1.5.
Okay.
So a 1 to 3.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I often
Yeah.
see, I feel like I let my friend down. She's not my client, but she's been really constipated, and she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, they checked my thyroid and it was fine." And I'm like, "Well, shoot. First of all, I didn't even think to remind you to check your thyroid." And then I'm like, "What did they even check to tell you it was
Yeah.
fine? And what was the range?" So,
Yeah.
and then there's the antibodies, which I
There's
find
the antibodies.
they don't standard check either.
Yeah. Yeah. In
And when
fact, even upon request, I feel like upon request, often they're not like first line. Like if you're not qualified as hypothyroid, a lot of times my clients have said they don't, doctors won't run those. So I agree with you. They're not commonplace.
Yeah. So when I went to see you, and this was a good learning experience for me, I had my first teeny tiny bit of antibodies a bunch of years ago, probably about the same 9 years ago time, but they were always tiny, like 5 or whatever. So
Yeah.
I wasn't always checking them per se. And when I wasn't feeling well last spring, my practitioner didn't run them. And I continued to feel like crap for 6 more months. And then I ran them and now saw I had one in the hundreds. And I was like, okay, I guess I should have been, keeping an eye on that every time, because I had no idea that was coming. So it's a learning experience for me. I don't know if you have any thoughts on all that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are some like kind of annual screens, maybe, every other year type of thing, especially if you're feeling off. I think that's definitely worth exploring and not just writing off as they've been normal in the past. Just, consider that's where you're at. So I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah, that
yeah,
was a wake-up call for me. Okay,
yeah.
so this was great. We got some numbers for people who are on live. You're welcome to ask any questions as we go, and otherwise I'm just gonna keep talking. So we talked a bit about diagnosis, and now let's talk a bit about finding correct treatment. I know the first time I was low thyroid, I was given some replacement, and it made me really sweaty, and I was like still kind of in that mindset of being afraid of medications, and I was like, I don't like this. It's making me hyper and sweaty. I'm out, right? And then I never tried another one, which
Yeah.
I think is also an experience people have. So how do we find like the right medication and the right dosage, and like how do we manage that?
And there are so many options, which is beautiful and also complex and wild and crazy for people. So it's it can get confusing. But I mean, of course docs have their preferences, and I do think that everyone's chemistry is different, so quite possibly maybe Bridget, you were, maybe your conversion was okay at the time or whatnot, but like, TSH was, I don't know what the scenario was in particular with you feeling sweaty, but yeah, thank goodness there are some options. So standard of care, I think, is the levothyroxine or the Synthroid, right? Which
Okay.
is just T4 replacement, synthetic T4 replacement. And that alone, I mean, some of my clients do fine on. Often my conversation is, most of us don't convert well. Most of us are experiencing like the low thyroid symptoms, be it weight gain or brain fog or, gut motility issues or hair, skin, and nails health stuff or body temp irregulation. Like there's so much that the thyroid is involved around. So a lot of us are experiencing that, and T3 is going to help, like lifting that will help us feel better alongside protecting us. So to prescribe a medication that's T4 alone and ask a system that's likely not converting well to do that better, it's just asking a system to do something it's not doing already, right? So levothyroxine can sometimes make numbers look a little better, but people are still feeling kind of junky.
Oh,
Um, they're noticing brain fog or still fatigue or whatnot. And as we know in synthetic medications, there are like preservative agents and different types of just synthetic products that are in them that you can be reactive to, in particular like gluten and those types of things. So going with those like commercially available medications, often people will react to even the smallest amount of like just junk that's in them. So
mm.
that's where I just always ask, and I often convert over to more of like the natural desiccated formulas.
Which
Um,
are called what?
yeah, so Armor is
Okay.
probably most widely known, and historically it's been used for a very long time. Um, so Armor is natural desiccated thyroid. It is derived from a pig, porcine derived glandular, and it contains your T4, your T3. It also contains T2, so it's a bit more full spectrum
Hmm.
thyroid hormone coverage. So for those of us that are hypo, we need that kind of more full spectrum support, and the amounts that are in them are naturally existing. So they're in ratios that exist in nature. So that's what I always talk to my clients when I start to replace. I consider, what exists naturally, and how can we attempt to mimic that as much as possible, to allow for just kind of some balance in your system. So Armor's one. The more cleaner, purified form is called NP thyroid.
Yeah, I had
In
taken that
pharmacy,
one.
Acela. Yeah,
Yeah,
right? It's a good one.
I
Yeah.
like that one. Yeah.
Okay. It's pure, but it's still the desiccated. It's still, sometimes covered by insurance. I know that game's a pain in the butt. Um, some people are paying a little more for that. Um, and then there's, the nature throids and other types of desiccateds that are still available from some pharmacies. I do have access and use some pharmacies that have raw materials that are like nature throid specific. So um, often the use of that version is the claim is more precision in like whatever is claimed in the medication. So that's been my preference over the years because of that. As a doc, we like to really know as specifically as possible what we're providing a client or a patient, but it's still within that desiccated realm um, of
Okay.
replacement. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple good questions here. I think I can
Oh yeah.
show them.
Okay.
This one is from Joanne, and sounds like she's got mold. She's potentially gained weight. Showing some slightly hypo and high reverse T3. Do you have any thoughts on that combo?
Yeah, yeah, and reverse T3. So thank you for bringing that up because that's often not commonly run. And I typically will run that as I start to advance in more therapies and replacement, and utilizing medication. So back to conversion, T4 is going to convert to T3, right? And with that natural progression, and if there's some block within that enzyme, we can push to that reverse T3, which is completely inactive. Um, Often when that's
Mm,
elevated, I'll see, and I don't know if this client, Joanne, if you're working with any type of medication, um, often if we're pushing the envelope with that a little bit, then I've seen, the shift, because it is a purposeful shift. It can be protective, but it's definitely telling us something. So there's still some conversion issues there, and that's where I would start diving into, like you had mentioned, what's contributing there. Is it tox burden? Is it gut health? Is it cortisol? Like, what else beyond just continuing to tinker medication dosing, thyroid medication? um, that would prompt me to dive some more into like the conversion issue.
yeah, and mold will always mess up your
Yeah.
gut, and it can make you kind of throw off your estrogen, and other factors could be going on besides just the thyroid being thrown off. So yeah, good question, Joanne. And then Nanette had one too. Um, so we gave a little bit of ranges, or I think we more gave ideals earlier. So if
Yeah.
ideal free T4 is around 1.5, I know like the low end of free T4 I learned was like 1.1. So,
Yeah.
and then I've heard from practitioner friends, you don't really want to be at 1.1.
No, that's not
You want
ideal.
so Nana, that's sort of my answer, but do you have any elaboration? If you're just at the low end, you just might not feel as well.
Yeah. 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 And I'm assuming, Annette, possibly this T3, T4 both low, and the TSH is quote unquote normal. I would um question, is that TSH, higher end of normal? Is it, 3.5, 4.1 type of a thing? Because that often when, our T3 and T4 are, normal ranges, they kind of feed back up to the brain and say, hey, we're cool. We have enough. You don't need to keep sending more stimulus. So, Nanette, if it's that combination, it might be a place to intervene and either consider like replacement or tinkering, with what that looks like, or even more intentional, like thyroid supportive supplementation. There's different types of like herbal formulas and specific nutrients that can support thyroid. And then beyond that, Bridgit, like you had alluded to, like other hormones play a role here too, right? Like even just throwing out a lot of information here, but estrogen dominance, that alone can antagonize our thyroid, right? And
Hmm.
contribute to some low levels there. So I, in speaking to labs, love to run thyroid labs alongside like all the things, sex hormones and stress hormones and other markers, inflammatory markers, just to get a really big picture, because nothing exists in a vacuum. So
Yeah.
those values might be low due to some other hormonal imbalances.
Yeah, yeah. We were running, well, we still do run it, but not as often. We were running
Mm.
this panel called Thyroid Plus. So we do the full thyroid, but
Oh,
then we do blood sugar and vitamin D and iron, which we're going to talk about.
yes.
And sometimes people come in thinking they have a thyroid thing, and their thyroid actually looked decent, but there were other things going on. So I was like happy, we had more to work with. So Melvin was asking what pharmacy provides Nature Thyroid, or is that the
Yeah.
Nature Throid, is that how you say it? Nature
Yeah.
Throid, yeah.
I don't know where your audience is, Bridgit. Obviously I'm in
Could be anywhere.
Arizona. Okay, could be anywhere.
Yeah.
So I work primarily in Arizona and do like ship elsewhere, but I use Strive Compounding out in Gilbert. So I know they have access to raw materials for Nature Throid. And then there's another out in Fountain Hills Pharmacy that I've been using a lot of, that use that. And then there's another in Scottsdale, Raintree Apothecary. So I think there's quite a few. I know that Nature Throid was the manufacturer itself was Arizona based. So I'm not sure if that's just allowing for more access here, but yeah, I have a couple pharmacies that I use regularly for that.
Okay, yeah, and we'll talk later more about sort of who Lauren can see from Arizona. We're getting a lot of questions here. They're coming right
Okay.
in.
Okay. All right.
If people can't do the porcine products, would you go more herbal or go more synthetic, or what do you think?
Yeah, or we can definitely go like more supplementation wise. I mean, I do use, oh, pardon me. And I neglected to mention one additional, synthetic, but, cleaner product. So we know the levothyroxine, the Synthroid, Tyrosint or Tirosint, however, pronounce that, but they're another product that is, a T4 specific, and they have both encapsulated in liquid formulas. So sometimes liquids I use with like my peds clients, but that's a T4 derived medication. It's a purified form. So yeah, for those that can't do the porcine, that's definitely an option. And Tyrosint's a great version. There's also different, glandulars. There are bovine glandulars that you can work with as well. So I have clients that do have this specific question. You're not alone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul mentioned another brand too,
Oh, cool.
Neurobiologics. I'll take this one last question, and then we'll move on a bit. So Joanne was asking about, kind of like I had in the beginning, kind of these low-level antibodies. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, and I think, and I was taught, anything on the board is something worth monitoring, right? So it's not just like, oh, they're normal, let's write that aside. No problem. I would say that's worth a follow-up, and just monitoring, because with autoimmunity, no one just exists on its own. Often, with one, immune dysfunction, other kind of conditions can arise. So I'd say it's a little, your body's telling you something. So continue to investigate, and quite possibly look into, look at those balloons that just went by you.
I
That
know,
was
it's like this
nice.
weird phenomenon that's going on.
Yeah. I thought we were,
And the
excited
funny
about
thing
that.
is, like, it's happening on 3 different platforms. It's happening on
Oh,
Instagram Live. Now we're on YouTube StreamYard. It's happening on me on Zoom.
I used to do this and it would give me a heart. I just not doing it
Oh,
now. And
there
it would
must
like
be,
do
yeah,
heart.
something. Oh, look, it just did it.
There. Yeah.
Okay,
And then I
there
got
must be
really excited
something
one
I'm
time.
doing
Yeah.
that's triggering the balloons. Well, I don't mind it.
Yeah. And back to that, I would say don't write that off as a completely, scot-free. I would continue to monitor over the years and just look into investigate other things that could be contributing to, just generalized inflammation, be it like a CRP or, a sedimentation rate, or I'm just looking at like kind of labs as a whole. So
Yeah, and I would say, well, in my opinion, like,
yeah.
do the things that love up on your thyroid and
Yeah.
kind of prevent any autoimmunity. So gut health and avoiding
Vitamin D,
gluten.
like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I just shared earlier, I don't know if you're on it yet, Joanne, but like mine were very low, always under 10. And then all after many years, now they're up. So I'm glad I at least knew. And now I've been thinking lately, I'm like, occasionally I'll have like a bite of something gluten because somebody made something or whatever. And I'm like, I better not do that anymore, in case that's part of what's going on. So Melvin had a question I think is interesting. I guess he's saying, do you ever treat using symptoms and without labs for thyroid?
And by treat, I mean, treat can be so many things. So yeah, my answer
Yeah.
to that overall will be yes. And then from a medication and maintenance standpoint, often I do like some numbers to just direct me. But I mean, my goodness, I treat all over the world with lots of different therapies for optimizing thyroid. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's some ways, particularly if you're just everything looks good, but you're a little low end, you can do more herbal, you can do more like dietary. But to me, like if you're, like when I came back to see you, I was, exhausted like all day long. It was time for my medication to go up. And I actually did try some herbal things in the interim. They didn't move the needle. So I think I'm just encouraging people to be open-minded sometimes to meds, because the difference in your quality of life can be really enormous when you're, supporting these glands the right way. So
And with meds, it is something that, I mean, I'll speak to my experience. It's something you can gradually come off of.
Oh,
That
great.
is a doable thing.
That's
Yes.
really good to hear. Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
move on a bit to anemia. And another marker that I think got a little missed for me, and I honestly have been really confused about because people say different things, is ferritin, which I understand what, a protein that helps store iron? Is that
Yes, it's the
correct?
storage, yeah, form of. Yeah. So quite often with anemias, testing will just be a complete blood count looking at like your red blood cell values and your hemoglobin and whatnot, and then possibly an iron, right? But our bodies will maintain iron status, to all degrees. But often they'll be pulling from all those like savings banks or reserves of iron. So ferritin is a commonplace test that I run just to see if we're starting to deplete our reserves. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So when I came to you, luckily I had tested ferritin,
Mhm.
which guys too, you can like test some of this stuff through us or on your own nowadays, which is pretty cool. And my ferritin, I think, was 30, I think.
Mhm.
And you were like alarmed. And I was like, how come no one's been alarmed before? Like, and so we did a couple iron IVs, and now I really want to retest. But I think you told me the other day, ideally at least 60. I think it's NGML.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was way low on that. And I've seen, obviously I wasn't very clear on the ferritin number, but I've seen lots of different types of anemia in our clients. I feel like this is a condition that is neglected and overlooked in fatigue. So I wonder if you can just speak more to that.
Yes, I see it often, and it's wild. And so with ferritin, there's what the normal ranges are anywhere from 9 to 150, but optimally, the numbers that I'm looking for are 60 to 90. I'll say at least a 60, like 75 to 90 is typically my goal zone. And even within that like 50 to 60 kind of zone, you'll start to experience like just the fatigue. Hair, skin, and nails health can be significantly impacted. I see a lot of mood instability, just kind of that. There's an association with what's called anhedonia, just like a loss of pleasure, be it for
Mm,
anything in life, painting or food or sex or like whatever you would bring you pleasure. It's just like a lack of the ability, kind of a monotone life. So it can really impact mood. There's a thyroid function, absolutely. So I think it's a really big factor to get to that optimal zone and be able to check that off your list of wonderful, we're repleted and optimal there, and then start to kind of manipulate other pieces. So yeah,
okay.
I love that. And often when low, you know, of course, women with like menstrual cycles and things like that can be a big contributor, right? To just having that depleted on the regular, but also gut health. It's like, why are we not absorbing from our foods
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
consuming, iron rich foods? So not only is it like, let's get that level up, but then it like prompts me to explore, where's this coming from? Why are you not absorbing or dumping, your iron?
Yeah, I feel like iron seems like hard to absorb because it's like I eat red meat and I feel like my
Yeah.
gut is running and like why is my ferritin so low? And I don't have heavy periods. And I've seen this like over and over
Yeah.
with clients too. So you told me it can be hard to get from a pill. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, and again, if you're asking a system that's having difficulty absorbing from whole foods to absorb from a capsule, I've definitely seen levels lift, but it tends to take more than just the standard one capsule of a 25 milligram, ferrous chelate, like a good form of iron. So I typically dose a little like higher to
Okay.
start, just to see people respond to labs. And then also speaking to supplementation, there's various forms of iron that exist, right? Over the counter iron from CVS or Costco is going to be kind of a lesser quality form that's going to have more adverse effects, like all that constipation and kind of gut, just gut upset, versus a good like iron bisglycinate or a chelated form of that type. So there's definitely quality sources that will not only allow you to feel better in the process, but help get numbers up. You just
What do
gotta
you think about those
get it.
ones? And I don't know if they're still for sale, but we had one called Ferrisorb, and I think it was attached to like kind of like an immunoglobulin, or no, it was like a colostrum based
Oh
one.
yeah. I do know that one is I'm familiar with that one. I don't think I've used that one a lot, but I've heard good
Okay.
things. I think that the transport piece is really um significant for all nutrients. So So yeah, have you
Okay.
seen
Yeah.
that
A
be effective?
practitioner friend, Evan Brand, I don't know if you know him. He was like, I really like that one. It thinks it
Cool.
just absorbs well. So, okay. Well, people don't seem as fired up about that topic. So we'll move on. But I think it's important. When I think back to how fatigued I
Yeah.
was, I think that was part of and I was feeling low too, depressed. And
Yeah.
so I think, there's just things happening on so many levels. And I think that my thyroid becoming more attacked, which I didn't know about, and it was
Yeah.
affecting me, and probably this low ferritin and low iron, among other things. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
It's definitely worth looking at for with symptoms that are within that thyroid, realm, but could be, yeah, just related to iron as well. So it's definitely, I look at it every time.
we do have one anemia question, so about MCV, MPV.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you want to comment?
And again, Bridget, you mentioned like different types of anemias, right? So there can be also anemias related to like more B deficiencies, right? So like our ability to absorb, utilize B12 and folate and things like that. So often when that's elevated, I say, okay, B's are, are imbalanced, and that leads me to think just like gut function, right? Because it's
Mm,
like, not only are we absorbing from our gut, but we're synthesizing a lot of B vitamins within our gastrointestinal tract. So sure, can we hit up a B complex? Absolutely. Or do B shots or, intravenous B vitamins. It's fantastic. And just keep further looking at why are you, having low levels there, and how can you kind of start to correct for that?
yeah, so the MCV, these basically mean like the red blood cells aren't dividing fast enough, and they need certain B vitamins to do that. So when we see these highs, usually indicates B vitamin deficiencies, in short. So that's how I interpret it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about some of the fun stuff you do, and I want to tell like a little funny story. When I thought to see you, I like forgot I had a friend who's a naturopath in town, and I was like, well, I don't know what she's gonna do. She's probably just gonna give me fish oil. Like I'm from like a very old school, sense of what naturopathic medicine is, and I went, and you're like, we're gonna shoot you up with this, and like I was like, whoa, which it's been amazing. And I just have
I
noticed,
brought the
like,
big guns, girl.
yeah,
I
I
wanted
was
to.
thrilled.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you know about fish oil? But I'll show up and see what she has to say. I just think it's really exciting, and there's just so much changing. And I'm getting back into acupuncture now, and our scope of practice has blossomed. I didn't
Yeah.
even know this. So I'm just thrilled. And I've been telling everyone about peptides, because
Yeah.
the peptides you gave me, Lauren's helping with my iron and my thyroid, but she started me on a peptide she can tell you more about, that is blowing my mind. I love it. And, I was really feeling sick when I came to see Lauren, but I wish I I don't even think these tools were out there when I was really sick with mold, which is my sickest I've ever been, the tiredest I've ever been. So I really want to spread the word, because I know I have, people in my community still dealing with mold, and maybe thyroid and other things too.
Mm.
But yeah, I can't, I really only tried this one peptide combo you gave me, but I just can't talk about it enough. Like that, I just think it's so potent. So I wonder if you
Yeah.
can just explain what these things are, kind of the options out there for people if they're curious
Yeah.
about them.
And peptide therapy is fascinating. And I feel like I'm just like breaking the surface into like the hundreds of thousands of options that are constantly being, created. And quite recently, within the last, I don't know, 9 months, there's been a lot of like FDA kind of came down on some peptides. So the availability has been shifted. But honestly, I think it's contributing to more creativity and more and more coming out. So if
Mm.
I encourage your client base to explore and ask about and find, practitioners that are dabbling in this, because it's a really, really incredible landscape, and it's powerful, like you were saying, Bridget. So what are peptides? First and foremost, peptides are basically amino acid sequences, and they can be, short or long, but they're basically just proteins that are sequenced together, and the different sequences will then allow for different mechanisms throughout the system. And peptides, like a solo peptide does not do a solo thing by any means. I mean, if any of you, the bigger one that's kind of being discussed here and now are all the GLP-1 agonists, right? Like the semaglutide, tirzepatide, all of those are all peptides.
Oh,
And they're finding more and more that sure, there's this weight loss, mechanism and this benefit, but there's just there's a long list of more benefits that just keep coming to be realized. So it's a really cool therapy. Now, they're interesting in that it's not really a medication. It's also not really a supplement. It's like in this middle zone of like, what do we classify them as? So I'm always asked, are they safe? Right. And so they're naturally occurring. A lot of them occur, naturally within our systems. And really the safety, in my opinion, is all about how they're used.
mm.
So I think using, working with practitioners, I mean, some of them are available online and you can get access, to them, but just Googling certain things. But understanding like how to use them, why to use them, when to use them, how to cycle them stuff, I think is really important. And then there's all sorts of reasons to use them. I mean,
Yeah, well, let's just talk about
yeah,
mine because maybe that's a good example.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think you give the one I take to some people who are doing like bodybuilding and body composition, but I
yeah,
remember you telling me it's going to help you recover. And
yeah,
that's exactly what I feel like it does.
yeah,
Instead of like waking up exhausted, I wake up recovered, feeling recovered. And I think it's a combo you gave me, right? You want to explain it?
yeah. So there are different versions of like growth hormone analogs and what are called secretagogues. So they're essentially analogs in that they're helping your body produce more of whatever they're asking of. So in this case, growth hormone. And growth hormone is so impactful on recovery. And, not only just for like physicality, like, thinking of bodybuilders and things like that, but just from like the day to day. So I've found in my clients that they significantly increase like deep restorative sleep. So I've used for that alone. We do produce growth hormone naturally at those early hours. So kind of just kickstarting your system to start getting into more rhythm of doing so can tremendously impact your recovery, which will then translate into improvements across the board, thyroid function, stress
Mhm.
resilience, um, all of those things that we've talked about. So yeah, it's a cycling of to just support your ability to recover.
Yeah, and I think it could be applied to like so many different
Yeah,
things, just sort of modern lifestyle is depleting, frankly. But when I think about people who are going through their mold journey, it's just incredibly stressful with all the like the logistics, and the body is working so incredibly hard and there's so much oxidation. So I don't know if you would choose this exact one for someone going through mold, but I just can see the potential. So I've been encouraging it, and we can talk more about who you can see from here in
yeah.
Arizona. Um, Another thing I posted that got a ton of attention was when I nebulized the glutathione
Oh,
with you guys, and everyone was like, what can I get? People were kind of asking, can they make that up over the counter, all that kind of stuff. The one you gave me is a prescription. It's like a compounded prescription. Um, I am loving it. Loving it.
that is my liquid gold. That's what my clients call it. It is magic. It is. I have
And
anywhere from 5-month-old post RSV, like little respiratory distress babies to like adults with, chronic asthma. It's a really, really powerful regenerative kind of blend. So I'm
yeah,
glad
it's
it's
4
helping.
things, I think, right?
Yeah.
NAC, licorice,
Glutathione.
glutathione, and what
Yep.
else?
N-acetylcysteine, glutathione, glycyrrhizinate, which is an antiviral,
Okay.
herbal derived antiviral from licorice root. And then often I'll add in quercetin, which is just for like that mast cell stabilization, right? So like
Oh,
an
yeah, yeah, yeah.
antihistamine type of piece. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just share what I'm using it for, and again, I think it can be applied to mold people. So since moving away from mold to Arizona, I developed long seasonal asthma, and, like, 5, 6 months of the year, and I had like a teensy tiny bit of that in the past, but never like that. So first I was on inhalers. Then last year I got really into taking Mullen, and that was helping quite a bit, but I was like, I'd have to keep up with it. Um, So adding this, I don't find it's good for if I'm having an attack. It's a little irritating, but it seems to be helping prevention. And there's lots of reasons why I could be having this asthma. It's not necessarily because of my past mold exposure, but I think it could be because of just the way that like whatever's left over in my lungs and just their sensitivity and my body's sensitivity to airborne irritants. So also asthma can increase in perimenopause, which I'm at that age. So just kind of giving all that background that not everybody who goes through mold is going to end up with asthma, but I did seem to play a part in my case. And it was just really annoying. You know, it was sometimes really bad. Like I couldn't even go outside. So now I'm doing my glutathione occasionally, no Mullen, no inhaler, and I'm just thrilled. Yeah, those inhalers are really expensive too, by the way. So I'm like, I'm just thrilled. You know, it's so satisfying to have a chronic thing and then see it resolve. Like, and you know, some of these techniques are a little spendy, but I feel like it's totally worth it to like get resolved and not like, you know, you'd be spending 6 months of the year like sucking on an inhaler. So I'm so thankful. And yeah, you're saying you use it for viruses and
Yeah,
congestion too.
viruses or there's allergies, you know, allergy prompted just like that cough or postnasal drip. So, and like you
Okay.
mentioned, it's healing. Like our tissue, when given the space and the environment, can, you know, heal and not be so like hyperinflamed and irritated, and therefore having all those symptoms. So when you can provide it with some of the tools to build more balance, then yeah, you won't have those issues anymore. So
Yeah, and you
yeah,
can hit
yeah,
it right to the tissue. And sometimes I
yeah.
feel like the body responds better than that. You can also breathe it through your nose. And one thing
Mhm.
I was reading recently, I think because I did a little article on glutathione, was like our glutathione levels can increase in the nasal area as we are faced with things like mold and allergies and stuff. So if you're giving it more of what it wants right there locally, your body doesn't have to work so hard. And then you're not hopefully getting all this like immune inflammatory response
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
And do I
So
still orally, you know, dose? Yes, and you know, intravenous use, but like you're saying, the local administration is so locally, it's powerful for those
yeah.
tissues. Yeah, yeah.
So Lauren had me buy, or you know, I wanted to do it at home, so I bought a little mask thing on Amazon, and then I have my little vial that I pull from. My son loves to tell everyone now that I'm on steroids, Lauren. He's like, I'm like shooting
You
my
on steroids.
testosterone. I'm
Yeah.
shooting my peptides. I'm like, okay, well, we all naturally make steroids, child.
Right? Come on, it's all naturally occurring. Yes, yes.
Yeah, but I'm
Um,
a big fan. Like, I think, you
good.
know, you may know Dr. Sean Tassone. Do you know him from the hormone world?
Uh-huh.
Maybe. Anyway, he wrote a book and I interviewed him. And, you know, historically, humans didn't live really even to 50. So it really was like a light bulb went off. Because if we think like, well, I want to do everything naturally, I don't want to replace, like, I just feel so much more vitality being on a few things than if I weren't. You know, my
Yeah.
muscle mass is good, my energy is good. So I'm just really thankful for all these interventions and um, for finding you. And you didn't just give me fish oil, you gave me like lots of fun, exciting
I said,
stuff.
hey, are you ready? You want to play with some
You
stuff?
did. You're like, I got all of it. Let's go. Which I
Yeah,
love.
yeah, yeah,
So how
yeah.
I can put your website on here, but
Oh
obviously people
yeah.
can work with you here in Arizona. How can people work with you if they're, you know, not local?
Yeah. So there, as far as like prescriptive agents and things like that, there are some
Yeah.
limitations, but I do have a lot of clients that are all over the country or, you know, global. So for consultations, for direction to either, you know, serve as, you know, a doc or to help just provide some feedback on whomever they're working with in their local spot. So so yeah, and I do a lot of virtual telehealth work, so it's
Awesome.
fun, and as of, you know, the last couple years, it's blown up, so I feel like it's just that much more mainstream to sit and have a conversation with a practitioner and get some direction via this, you know,
Yeah. And people have
platform.
become much more open to it.
Yeah,
You do
yeah.
pediatrics, as you mentioned.
I
Lauren
I do. I
is,
see kiddos.
yeah, yeah. Lauren is pregnant with her fifth child, and this is how gorgeous she is and how much energy she has. So she's doing something right.
Got all the
You know what I
hormones going right
realized?
now.
I have
All of
4
them.
friends with 4 kids. Like, what are the odds?
Wow.
Yeah,
That
like
is not commonplace these days, right?
now you'll have
Yeah.
5, so everyone else is gonna have to
There you go.
step up.
There you go. But and then back to, you and I still have more to talk about with regards to peptides, but like explore that world, everybody, because there's a lot of cool stuff in particular for like mold community stuff. So
okay, yeah. If you want to
so
share
I think,
anything, feel free. I know
yeah.
I might have cut you off, but I also
No,
wanted to
you're
share
fine.
that
But I just wanted to make sure that was highlighted because I think, yeah, it's just a really powerful thing to
it
explore, and there's
is.
just so
Yeah.
much that can be, so much benefit that can be reaped from just starting to explore that. It's really,
Yeah, and
it's
I'm all
fantastic.
about, like, if you guys have been following, I'm all about dry brushing and using your sauna and coffee enema
Yes.
and like simple stuff. But sometimes you need like a bigger tool, and that's how I was when I started to work with Lauren. And I'm like, I know that something's not right because I have a healthy habits. I'm doing
Yeah.
everything I can here in my daily life, and it's just not enough. And I just hate for people to suffer for months and years with extreme fatigue or can't do certain activities. Lauren also offers like a free consult. So if you're like, well, I'm interested, but I don't know if she's going to get me these peptides, then just talk to her and tell her where you're living. Her husband also works in the practice, does similar stuff or a little different.
Yeah, similar stuff. And then he has this like another specialties, more focusing on like pain management, body work, does a lot of like joint injection therapy, regenerative medicine stuff. So he has kind of
Physical
a subset
medicine
of a lot of
stuff.
those. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Phys med
I
stuff.
should
Yeah.
kind of network with him a bit on that too, as I'm starting up acupuncture world again.
Oh
So
yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Anything else you want to share that we missed today, Lauren? Did we cover everything?
goodness. Well, no, I'll piggyback on just you mentioning like the habits and the lifestyle. And like I have the luxury of a lot of my clientele are plugged in to like just living healthy lives, right? Like waking up, drinking water, getting movement, all the things, and they're still kind of hitting a wall. So a big conversation is keep doing that. Like keep up with all of that, and let's add in a couple pieces periodically. And these peptides and these things that we're talking about aren't forever, but it's just to kind of allow for the efforts you're putting in to start allowing gains, like let's move, let's go
Yeah.
and get you where you want to go so that you can keep like moving forward. So heck, I totally agree with you. The dry brushing, all the behavioral lifestyle mindset stuff is super critical for foundation. And then there's just a lot of fun stuff that can kind of light the fire to just get a bit more movement going. So
yeah, I was trying to think of an analogy. It was like, maybe it's like, we even like our spiritual health, there's things we do, little things every day to keep it up. And then every now and then we have to push ourselves out of the comfort zone and do something new. Like you need the bigger push. And I think just the world we live in, unfortunately, sometimes just like the healthy habits aren't quite enough anymore. We're really faced with a lot. I was just interviewing a pediatric integrative physician yesterday, and the children's health is declining. Right when they have like the most vitality, they're just being exposed to so much that So it's just I think it's like become. I think it's just becoming, frankly, like we have to, have a higher level of care than just like, well, I went on a walk and drank some water. Like if that is working for you, great. But if you find that it's not enough, then, then talk to Lauren. So she's got a lot of goodies.
I'll get all my fun toolbox out for you. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time and great questions,
Yeah.
you guys. Today, I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. And if you want to come back to this or refer it to someone else, the same link is where you watch the recording, which is was something I appreciate about this YouTube Live. So thanks again, everyone.
Thank
Lauren,
you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.